Blessings and welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we are in 2 Chronicles chapters 27, all of chapter 27. We're in 2 Kings chapter 15, verses 19 through 38. And then we go to Isaiah and we read chapters 5 and 6. But today when starting off in 2 Kings had an unusually long list of kings. Kings of Judah, who were mostly good, and then kings of Israel, who were all bad, and a couple of instances where the kings of Israel would get assassinated, then another king would come in, and that king would get assassinated. And so the story goes for Israel, or at least it will be for just a little bit longer, and then something's going to happen to Israel, but I don't want to give that away yet. 2 Chronicles, I thought, had a really neat takeaway in it. In chapter 27, verse 6, there was this guy named Jotham, and he was a good king. And there was this really neat story about him being king over Judah, and the Bible said that he became mighty because he ordered his ways before the Lord his God. Think about that word, ordered. He ordered his ways. Do you ever think about how you order your ways, how you prepare things that are upcoming, things that are you want your path to go a certain way, to accomplish certain things, but it's God's path and they're God's things. I love the way it says that he ordered his ways before the Lord his God, and he was mighty because of it. And then we go to Isaiah chapter 5. Lot of, I guess, reminders for me, or not reminders, a lot of similarities with what's going on in our culture today. And you will see this throughout the Bible. We'll see this in tomorrow's read. And I don't want to get ahead of myself as far as that goes, but Micah is one of the, I've always loved that book, and one of my favorite verses comes from that book. But we'll see that tomorrow. But today, Isaiah 5:18 through 22, woes are pronounced on this unjust society, which is Israel. 15:18 says, "Woe to those who drag iniquity with cords of falsehood." And iniquity is an interesting word because it means immoral or grossly unfair behavior. Now, for some time, Israel has been warned over and over about being an unjust society, the society that perverts justice. And we have seen this build, and today it continues when he talks about this iniquity of Israel. But it says, those who do wrong to someone and lie and say it is their fault. There was a good story about this we read with Ahab and Jezebel. If you remember, Ahab wanted Nabal's garden, and he wanted to turn it into a vineyard so he could just get his grapes and his wine right next door to his house. And Jezebel set Nabal up and had people lie about him, saying, "Oh, Nabal cursed God." And everybody got angry and took Nabal outside and killed him, stoned him to death. So they lied about him. He was killed, and then they profited from his murder, basically, that they orchestrated. So, and that's what this verse is getting at. I mean, that's how bad it is. Verse 20, it says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil." Do we see things in our society today that you look at it and people are holding it up as something really good, and you're like, that's not good. That's not good at all. But then they'll take something perverted and really bad and hold it up and say, this is good. No, that's not good. Then you'll see something that is good, and they'll push it down and they'll stomp on it and say it's terrible, it's offensive. So we are seeing this in our day and time. Woe to those who call evil good and call good evil, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. There's just this rebellion, this spirit of rebellion that is building in our country. And it's getting worse. So we have to be a people that depend on God, that trust God, even in the midst of these bad circumstances. Keep our focus on God. Have this vertical spiritual view, and not let this horizontal circumstantial world bring us down. Good law enforcement takeaways from today. Tomorrow we're in the book of Micah. There's 7 chapters to it, so it's going to take a little bit longer to read than some of our past reads. But please, I urge you, take the time to read Micah and come back tomorrow, because it's going to be really interesting. Until then, you guys be safe.